Need all the farmers for Trump to come to the front of the class, because I hear you're asking the rest of us.
Okay, so yes, we need all of our farmers, and I want them to do good. The average person, the average American wants them to do good, but I want you to look at it this way. Farmers are asking for a bailout, and on average, it's interesting because the average farmer voted against bailing out student loan debt. So right now you're asking us to shift funds towards the economy of farming in America, whose environment and whose ecosystem is completely unstable, and continue to omit other countries who have these stable economies and who have contributed to America and their success and have kept prices low for us. And you wanted to keep it away from the people who in my generation were pretty much said get a degree or live in poverty. Y'all, we got to work together here. We got to figure it out.
Does a farmer suffer?
That's right.
I mean, some people would hear that and be quite...
You know what, guys? These fucking farmers, they played us. They played us. These motherfuckers had us having sympathy for them. And all the time they had a scam going on. These motherfuckers overwhelmingly supported Donald Trump and put him into office, knowing that they were going to get welfare from him. So now the rest of the country is suffering, and then they come out and they cry about the tariffs killing us, and then Donald Trump write them another big ass check like he did last time. He did this last term. Fuck these farmers. We need to stop bailing them out. If you voted for Donald Trump, you get no bailout. No fucking bailout, because you are the ones that caused this problem. And now you think you're just gonna go laugh into the bank and don't have to do. The farmers are getting paid to not produce. They are the biggest welfare recipients in this country, and we think they work hard. These motherfuckers don't work hard. All they do is collect checks from the government not to produce any product, and they sit back and complain about other people getting food stamps or any type of help from the government, and they are the biggest welfare recipients in the country. We're done with farmers. You voted for Donald Trump, you need to weather this storm. We don't feel sorry for farmers anymore. They played the shit out of us. People feeling sorry for these motherfuckers, thinking they're gonna lose their farms and shit. And then come to find out this was all a scam from them. They knew what was gonna happen. They knew. That's why Donald Trump was like, he kind of winked and nodded at the farmers, because he knew what he was gonna do. They all knew. They played us. They fucking played us. Now they get why do they get taxpayers' money for free and don't have to produce any product? While every other industry is suffering. Other small businesses are suffering with these tariffs, but the farmers get bailed out. Why?
Last night I watched video after video of farmers who might lose their farms because the government is reneging on contracts they wrote with these farmers. Hi guys, my name's Will, your favorite rural campaign and elections expert, and let's talk about it. Now the problem is President Trump's order to freeze most federal grants and loans has created a panic and uncertainty within the agricultural sector, which relies on billions of dollars in direct government assistance for loans, disaster relief, and conservation practices, many of which have been around since the days of FDR, and farmers have begun to rely on them. Now, if you've watched the news at all, you know that a federal judge blocked the order on Tuesday. The problem is, and what the media isn't telling you, is that farmers and ranchers over the last week to 10 days have begun to receive letters telling them that the government may not be able to live up to the promises they made in these signed contracts with farmers and ranchers to improve conservation and increase productivity on the farm. Sadly, I watched one cattle farmer video last night in the state of Missouri where he said that he's going to fall $80,000 short in funding because the government promised him that if he and his family invested in good conservation practices, they would support his efforts with grants and loans. He received a letter in the past 10 days telling him that they couldn't keep their promise even though they have a signed contract. And as a direct result, he's going to fall $80,000 short on his spring loan payment. And the only option he has right now is to sell his cattle. And he needs those cattle because those cattle are going to have calves, and he needs those calves to pay his fall payment. It's a no-win situation, and it's not his fault. My friends, this is the problem with electing a president that knows nothing about agriculture. and placing people at the Department of Agriculture whose only understanding of growing crops and raising livestock is what they learned in a YouTube video on the plane on their way to Washington, D.C. To give you an example of the size of the problem, farmers received more than $10.5 billion in direct government payments in 2024, nearly half of which came from conservation programs, and that figure doesn't include federal crop insurance, which accounted for over $19 billion just in 2022 alone. And the consequences not only impact a farmer's ability to pay his loans, they also run the risk of costing farmers the land itself. As an example, the federal government approved a $2.3 million low-interest federal loan to replace drainage tiles in Montgomery County, Illinois. The loan was part of a $307 million USDA grant program to modernize rural drinking water and wastewater infrastructure. And for those of you that didn't grow up on a farm, drainage tiles or pipes buried under farmland carry away excess water. Farmers began using them in the 1890s, and many of these tiles in Montgomery County, Illinois are collapsing, and that causes flooding. And flooding prevents farmers from planting their crops. Now, farmers are starting to understand the extent of Trump's lack of knowledge, and they're starting to speak out. One farmer was quoted as saying, "Trump has no knowledge, zero knowledge of what's important relating to agriculture, especially agricultural drainage." Unless you think that the grant programs spelled out in the freeze are the only way the Trump administration is attacking small family farms and ranches, remember this. This is just one piece of the puzzle. Before attempting to freeze federal grants and loans, Trump signed an executive order suspending all Inflation Reduction Act funding, including the USDA's Partnership for Climate, Smart Commodities.
Look at that. It's been, 3 months, MAGA? And farmers are already talking about needing a bailout, a tax-funded bailout. Nope, not this time, you fucking losers. You knew exactly what was coming your way and you still voted for it. You need to learn that your actions have consequences. And this particular situation, you're not going to be able to recover from, farmers. Sorry, this is permanent now. As the rest of the world is displaying, they're just going to cut the United States out of those supply chains entirely. The opposite of coming to the negotiating table. With the United States, they're certainly going to the negotiating table, just with other countries. Take Brazil's latest deal with China. Okay, you know what? Just fuck the United States. We don't need that market volatility. We're just going to deal directly with China since they have all the stuff anyway. Yeah, this is going to destroy American agriculture. Plus, you dumb motherfuckers never think about the implications of policies that even you like because you hate poor people. Like, I know one of your favorite things to do is watch poor people starve, but you seem to forget where the food for these food banks and supplemental nutrition assistance were coming from. USAID, the food going to them. Who do you think supplied that food and who's being paid for that food? American farmers. There's billions of dollars they've lost just there. And that was before this ridiculous trade war, which is going to absolutely cut the legs out from underneath American farmers, and they will never come back. There is no fixing it this time. You just gave the world a massive reason to walk away from the United States because it isn't 1950. We're not the only economy in the world. You don't need access to our markets to survive anymore, MAGA. This is how we became a third world nation. That's what history will remember. While you dumb motherfuckers cheered it on. But no bailouts. No more. You don't get to vote to destroy the country and expect billions of dollars of our money to stay afloat. Fuck yourselves.
Now, this orange crap is jacking the economy up, jacking the farmers up, which you voted for it, so good on you, farmers. And now you want us to bail them out with our tax dollars again? Yeah, no, I vote no. Then on top of that, China is literally calling us peasants because some person who will go unnamed decided to call them peasants when they supply us with I don't know, most of the stuff we have. But you know what? Now that I think about it, everybody might be turning into peasants because, again, the economy is doing a topsy-turvy thing. We literally going back to where we was at, I don't know, 4 years ago when he got out of office and somebody had to come in and try to clean up his mess because he tied in all the bailouts and on top of tax cuts for people who don't need it. So, yeah, maybe they are. They're just trying to turn everybody to peasants.
Farmer bailouts. As a small farmer, here are some things I think the public should know about them. Farmers that ask for bailouts, we usually tell you three things. One, we feed you, so really you owe it to us. Two, they need your help because they're poor. And three, they need your help because agriculture is so hard. In fact, it's kind of hopeless. It's definitely not because some financial decisions were made that are not panning out. Let's unpack those three things that they will tell you. First off, we feed you. The main reason, not the only reason, but the main reason that US farmers are asking for help right now is trade wars. They're used to selling a lot of soy, corn, tobacco, and other products abroad, mostly to China. But now they can't because trade wars. Now, if a farmer is losing a lot of money because of a trade war, they weren't feeding you. They were selling goods abroad. There's good odds they don't even want to try and feed you because raising cheap bulk exports to China is, I wouldn't say easy, but it's fairly simple as farming goes. Growing food for domestic consumption is a lot more work. So a lot of people in agriculture, frankly, don't even want to try and feed Americans. That's why they're asking for bailouts instead of just changing what they grow to feed Americans. To do that, they'd have to grow a lot more fruits and veggies, and they don't want to do that. Now, growing food for export is a perfectly fine thing to do, but don't build your farm around exports and then turn around and tell the US taxpayer, hey, you owe me because I feed you. Two, you will be told that farmers need help because they're so poor. We all grew up hearing about how poor, struggling small family farms are being pushed out of agriculture. And yeah, that's very real. And yes, the average family farm does lose money every single year. Both of those things are 100% true. Now, after we've just had decades of pushing poor white, black, brown, tenant, and sharecropping farmers out of agriculture, let's stop for a second and ask ourselves, who's left? It's overwhelmingly families with enough financial ballast and multi-generational wealth to survive bad years. It's people who can afford to lose money. Think about who can afford to do a thing that keeps losing money. It's not poor people. We do have data on farmers' wealth and income here in the US, and it will rock your world. And I put a link in the comments or description because you deserve to see this for yourself. The truth is, family farmers in the US actually tend to make more money than non-farmers in America. Yes, after you take out farm debts and expenses. And that's not new. It's been like that every single year since 1998. At this point, most small family farms in the United States are also millionaires. Now, being a millionaire is not what it used to be. And I've been very happy to work with some families who do have big multi-million-dollar estates and do a good job with it. I actually made a whole video that goes into a couple of those farms and why they're cool. Link in the description and or comments. The people who have a lot of resources can work very hard and do great things, and I love to see it. And I think a lot of what made those folks successful was they acknowledged that they had a lot of resources and that responsibility comes with that, and they took it seriously. That's just one reason it's really important to understand what's really going on wealth-wise in agriculture. The median small family farmer in America is right at the top 10% of Americans for wealth, believe it or not. And it's been like that for a while. So when people say, oh, bailouts only go to millionaire farmers, I do get a little chuckle out of that because that's most farmers. Most farmers are millionaires. You'd actually have to put in a little legwork to find the ones of us who are not. Now, people can get really upset when I point out what's going on with farmers financially, but it is the truth. And as a small family farmer who is not a millionaire, because I am merely entry-level middle class, knowing that most of my peers are in a completely different financial world from me is actually really helpful. It puts things in perspective. Unfortunately, it's also really common for Americans who are pretty wealthy to not realize that they're wealthy. They hang out with other people like themselves, so they think their life is normal. That's why rich people in America often self-identify as middle class. So the farm sector is still mostly in denial about the wealth level that most farmers in the US today are working with. But that doesn't mean you have to be. Just know that when farmers ask for bailouts, even when it's a normal year where they didn't start a trade war, that's still people who are mostly in the top 10% of wealth in America asking the bottom 90% for money. It's unseemly. 3, to cap it all off, the public is always getting told how hopeless agriculture is. And yeah, it's hard work, but hopeless it is not. After 27 years in the industry, I'm still pretty close to the bottom of farmers and wealth just because I didn't inherit land and I've had to build everything myself from scratch. That's a rarity in American agriculture today. Most people in farming today were born into some property. So I've got every excuse to be a pessimist on agriculture, and I'm not. Here's why. I've worked with hundreds of family farms, and a lot of them were real doers. You know the drill. I don't know how I'm going to stay in the game. Nobody wants to work anymore. The world is falling apart. But I also worked with a lot of family farms whose biggest problem was, I don't know how we're going to keep up with demand. People really, really want what I'm growing, and the prices they're willing to pay work out just fine for me. My biggest problem is, how do I grow enough to give the people what they want? I know what kind of problems I want to have, right? I will take the second kind, thank you. The biggest divide between the optimists and the doomers wasn't really money, because farmers across the board tend to be fairly high net worth individuals. It wasn't whether or not their day job paid a lot of money, it was what they chose to grow. People who chose to grow things are in demand, even when it's hard, that take more investment and work up front, tend to get good results financially, are able to build a proper livelihood. The farmers I worked with who believe that farming is hopeless. Some were small farmers without a lot of resources, but a lot of them were surprisingly large with a lot of finances to back them up, and they were still feeling hopeless about things. Some have high-paying jobs, some don't. The one thing that unites them, all those pessimists, is what they choose to grow. One thing that really unites the pessimists in agriculture is they just grow whatever the baseline crop is to grow. Could be corn, soybeans, hay, whatever in your area. They tend to grow it in the simplest way, not using cover crops, not using IPM that tends to save money in the long run. And now let me be clear, simple is relative because nothing in agriculture is easy. But there's a baseline of hard, and then some things are even harder. All that said, the pessimists in agriculture, in my experience, tend to be the people who gravitate towards the baseline, most simple crops, even when the price is bad. Even when we're having a trade war and the market for it is gone, they will keep growing the same baseline, most simple crops just because they're simple. No matter what happens, every year they keep growing the baseline over and over again and complaining that they keep getting the same result. And that is wild behavior to see, because there is really so much opportunity out there, and farmers can have a lot more control over our finances than a lot of us seem to realize. Agriculture is not doomed, and you would think people in my sector, other farmers, would be excited to hear that. A lot of my peers really don't like when people talk about the opportunity out there, because they'd rather believe it's hopeless. Because if there's hope, then they'd be responsible for living up to it, and they especially want everyone else around them to think farming is hopeless too. Because if everyone else believes farming is hopeless, then it's really easy to do the bare minimum on your farm, get bad results, blame everybody but yourself, and go begging for handouts. It's just easier to spin a story of doom and gloom and demand bailouts than it is to live up to your potential. I want to be clear, absolutely, we need safety nets, but trade war bailouts for farmers, a group of people who are mostly millionaires, who voted in their own problems, that's not a safety net. That's just the rich sticking up the poor. So I'm one of the poorer farmers still working in the United States today. And I'm here to tell you, the trade war bailouts that a lot of my peers are asking for are a mess for a whole host of reasons. I'd really like my sector to think very carefully about what we do and what we ask for. Backlash is real. I gotta get back to work. I hope everybody gets what they worked for.
Donald Trump is preparing to bail out farmers due to his trade policies with China. This is according to the Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins, who made the rounds on these Sunday morning talk shows. Now, she claims that these bailouts are needed because key commodities are plunging, particularly soybean and pork exports to China. No shit, we could have told you this was going to happen. In fact, we did tell you this would happen. She went on to say that this threatens billions of dollars in farm income annually, and that her and Donald Trump are praying that they don't need this bailout, but if they do, they're ready to provide it. But it'll be similar to Trump 1, when it was short-lived and cheap. It was neither short-lived or cheap in that first administration. In fact, it went on for more than 3 years and cost the taxpayers more than $28 billion. Now, if you're thinking, what's the big deal? Farmers provide us food, they should be bailed out. These are the same people who are directly voting against their own basic needs. Of the 444 counties in the United States that derive the majority of their income from agriculture, all but 11 of them voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump. They voted for what they're getting right now. These are the same people who push their legislatures to vote against free school lunches and push their legislatures at the national level, congressmen and senators, to vote against student loan bailouts. Meanwhile, they're receiving billions of dollars a year in subsidies and bailouts.